and feature if you've joined us on Zoom. And city staff or Planner DeLeo will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number or your Zoom name, and you'll hear an announcement that it's your turn to speak. Please move to a quiet area and mute background noise. And for all participants, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anybody who is indicating to us that they would like to speak? Yes.
Yeah. Caller phone number ending 134. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Planner DeLeo and Chair Abrams. This is Ken Garber, 28 Haverhill Court. Thank you, Planner DeLeo, for another fine staff report. As you know, the height exception, UDC 51814D, is broken. After repealing FAR downtown at the end of 2023, height went from an incentive to, frankly, a giveaway. Commissioner Lee calculated that for 625 Church Street, a $100,000 to $150,000 cost for solar panels and conduit to get the extra height boosted the value of the building by $34 to $40 million. Quite a return. And while the sustainability definition should require electrification, not just electric readiness, the upfront costs for a fully electrified building aren't much higher than for gas, if at all. So it's still a giveaway. Instead, I think we should require compliance with State Appendix CC, the zero code, to get the extra height. That's what OSI is asking. The zero code is in our 820 plan, which is city policy. Strategy 3, Action 2 states, quote, pass the 2021 building code and the zero code appendix so that all new developments and major renovations in Ann Arbor can be net zero energy, end quote. This was supposed to happen in 2021 and be mandatory for all new construction. Instead, the state didn't approve until last year, and local units can only use it as an incentive or for things like planned projects. But it's on the books, so we should use it for the height exception. That's what the state intended. It works like this. First build to 2021 IECC energy efficiency standards, then calculate renewable energy needs from an energy simulation or a standard table, then meet that requirement with on-site renewable energy where feasible, along with off-site if necessary. It rewards buildings that are more energy efficient than code. It doesn't require electrification, but in practice, gas-heated buildings don't comply, given the much greater efficiency of heat pumps, not just geothermal, but also air source. Verifying compliance should not be complicated and would be done at the time of final building inspection. I also endorse the OSI memo from Ms. Ebling and Mr. Christensen. On-site gas connection for backup, I don't think is formally required by code, even when some form of backup power is required. So, on affordable housing, I don't know about giving up on otherwise market rate projects, which is what the 100% stipulation would do. Only nonprofits. I'm out of time?
Close, 30 seconds remaining, 20 now.
Oh, well, all right. Well, yeah, the 100% stipulation would really limit use of the affordability height exception to nonprofits like Avalon Housing. We'd be pretty much giving up on market rate housing, including affordable units, which may be what we want. I honestly am conflicted on that one. So I look forward to the discussion. Thank you for considering my comments and for your pretty much constant commendable work on everything, especially given all the effort on the comp plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no additional callers raising their hand.
Great. Okay. Then we will move on to agenda items 3. 3A is the amendments to Chapter 55 UDC related to stormwater management review. And I think you have a presentation for us, Planner DeLeo.
I do.
No
No
rush.
actual presentation tonight.
Okay.
I'm happy to screen share memos or so on and so forth. I also have a blanket apology in advance for all of the coughing. But that's the way it goes. So first on the agenda is a discussion on amendments related to stormwater management review. These were prompted by my colleagues in the systems planning unit. The systems planning unit, they plan and coordinate maintenance of the city's public infrastructure, and some of their staff joins our development review team, and they review site plans for their areas of applicable regulations and expertise. One of them is our stormwater management requirements. And they approached us and said that we know that a somewhat recent ordinance to amend this section to separate out the city review responsibility from the Washtenaw County Water Resources review responsibility somehow didn't land correctly, and it's confusing. And they have asked us for the amendments that I am proposing, and that's to just simply write out exactly what are the conditions that requires review by Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner. And so the current language, which states, and I'll just read it quickly for the record. The review is outsourced or delegated to WCWRC for sites within their jurisdiction or sites with existing or proposed stormwater management systems under multiple ownership or for multiple parcels, including but not limited to site condominiums or residential developments containing greater than 4 dwelling units with 2 or more detached structures, or sites with stormwater management systems serving more than 1 parcel. And they say that doesn't get at what they want. So we are proposing to change it to say the WCWRC shall review stormwater management systems for sites that have 1 or more of the following conditions: ownership by Washtenaw County; 2, existing or proposed infrastructure owned by Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner; 3, existing or proposed easements dedicated to WCWRC; or 4, when review is deferred to WCWRC by the PSA administrator. That would be Public Services Area Administrator. This is, I'm happy to take any comments or feedback. A public hearing is scheduled for these amendments next week on March 3rd. There is a little bit of time to incorporate any minor changes or tweaks, but this is mostly being, this is the exact language and is mostly being requested by my colleagues in systems planning. I will, though, either take nods or any questions or maybe suggestions. Commissioner Norton.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure I understand. So effectively what they're doing is asking to limit the Washtenaw County review to instances where the Washtenaw County review has a real reason to do a review, but otherwise the city will be reviewing stormwater. The city will still continue to review changes that could affect stormwater systems, right?
Exactly. Whereas previously it said sites in the jurisdiction of the county. Let's just say the county. It's a lot of letters. Currently it says sites in the jurisdiction of the county. They're saying let's just list when it's in the jurisdiction, and it's when it's owned by the county, it has the infrastructure or it has the easements. And we are still leaving open the option to defer if it is particularly complicated or when we feel that the county can use its powers, its drain commissioner powers. But otherwise, it is reviewed by our city staff. In either case, though, we both use the same design standards. And so we're getting the same stormwater systems out of it.
Okay, but I guess I'm trying to understand, were they worried that the county was doing too many reviews or reviewing things they really didn't need to review? Is that what's prompting this?
No, it was our staff saying, why are we saying this nebulous when it's in the jurisdiction? Why aren't we just listing when so other people can determine when it is in-house or not?
So it's clarification, basically.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
This seems fine. I wanted to point out Mr. Garber's still allowed to talk. I'm sure we would all love him to participate in this meeting, but still showing up as like him having permission.
Okay, then I did that wrong.
But this looks great.
He is thank you for that.
Sorry, Mr. Garber.
Are there any other comments or questions? And just to confirm, systems planning has approved, they're on board with this language, right? I mean, you've done this in collaboration with them at their request, essentially.
Yes, exactly. They are on board. In fact, they wrote the list.
Right.
I reviewed it. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement that this seems pretty straightforward. Okay, good.
We will move on to solid waste term. I'm putting my header down. This is another staff-initiated one that I am presenting to you that has already been scheduled for a public hearing next week. There is time to provide some feedback and make comments, but this is in the cleanup category. But, and these are amendments related to solid waste terms. These stem from other work that different colleagues in public services, specifically in public works, have recently done to amend Chapter 26, which is the solid waste management chapter, and their solid waste regulations, which they adopt by reference. It is policy statements and guidelines and regulations. Those codes and ordinances added, updated some and added some new definitions on solid waste containers and things like points of collection and so on and so forth. When we learned in planning, we learned about this work, we realized that we use some of the same solid waste terms, some of the same old ones, some of the same new ones, but we also have other phrases and words that no longer align. And so we propose these amendments to clean up, to align with the terms that the other chapters of City Code are using. Chapter 26 now uses solid waste as the generic encompassing term for specifically refuse, rubbish, garbage, recyclables, and compostables. And they use the term solid waste container as the encompassing term for curb carts and dumpsters. We use some of those sometimes, but we did a review of Chapter 55, and we found 5 instances where we felt that we should update our code. Attached in the packet is the actual proposed ordinance. I'm going to sort of highlight it, though. I'm going to stick with the memo, but I'd be happy to get into the weeds if desired. But in the section 518, the special dimensional and site layout standards, there's a particular paragraph that addresses where structures may be located on a lot in residential districts. And so that's things that may be permitted in the front, side, or rear setback areas. And it said that solid waste containers could be located there. And we are proposing to change that to curb cart. This specific change means curb carts alone may be stored anywhere on a residentially zoned lot, but dumpsters must meet the front, side, and rear setback standards for the district that the lot is located. Second, in section 520, landscaping, screening, and buffering. This subsection requires screening and buffering for solid waste containers, and it currently references refuse/recycling/compost containers, and it is proposed to be changed to solid waste containers, and clarify that screening is from the view of the public right-of-way, or a private street, or a public park, or a parcel in a residential zoning district. The screening as well as a buffer strip is required. And as currently, screening will not be required for curb carts of single-family or two-family dwellings. What this change is really doing is it's no longer requiring screening I feel it maybe have been interpreted this way occasionally, but it's going to be much clearer. Screening is not required around all four sides of the dumpster enclosure, with no way to technically access the dumpster enclosure. And also, if the buildings themselves are screening the dumpsters from view of adjacent properties, you don't need to provide screening when the building itself is already doing that. A third amendment that we are proposing is in section 529.1, zoning permits. This subsection requires a zoning permit for fences and dumpsters for recycling, and it will be changed to reference the placement of solid waste containers, points of storage. As a side note, chapter 26 and the solid waste regulations now have specify the difference between container points of storage and points of collection, which may be different. And for example, we all may store our cart in our garage, and that would be the point of storage, but it's collected out at the end of the driveway. That's the point of collection. You may recall in some recent projects and developments, the dumpsters or the facilities are maybe within the building, and then they're rolled out, they're collected inside of a building, and they're somehow taken to a different spot on the site, maybe just away from the building a bit, to be collected. Our fourth amendment is to section 529.8, required plan information. In two instances, the paragraphs require information related to either solid waste enclosure or refuse container and enclosure, and we'll change those to solid waste container, points of storage, and points of collection. And finally, in the definition section, the specific term open space, the reference will change from refuse facilities to solid waste container storage. Again, I'm happy to get farther into the weeds, but I did want to share with the Ordinance Revisions Committee these ordinance revisions. But I have worked with our colleagues in solid waste, public works, to align their work with our chapter of city code.
Thank you, Planner DeLeo. Any questions or comments? Yeah, Commissioner Mills.
Overall, I think the intention is clear. The memo's clear. I think it all looks good. I would say the attachments that were included, there's a marked up copy of chapter 26, but the the UDC, I wasn't following the markups. And so just when this comes back before everyone,
Okay.
and there was a part that said clean copy, it's just, I would include the track changes version. I think that will make it clearer that we're not really changing anything. We are unifying language.
Absolutely, fair enough. Yeah.
Just also point of clarification, we've got the chapter 26 stuff in here, but that's not under our purview, right?
No, I provided that just in case you wanted to know what somebody else did to chapter 26.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Any other comments or questions? Great. Yeah, I'll just plus one what Commissioner Mills said about the track changes. I had to kind of look for them. So
Okay.
the typical, I think way we're used to seeing that would be helpful. Otherwise, it seems pretty straightforward to me.
All right. I'll look into that again. Something must have gone awry.
Okay, thank you.
All
right, so then that takes us to 3C, which is the exceptions to height limits.
right. With all the papers. All right. I'm presenting this tonight as a little bit of a reboot, but more in depth and hopefully a bit more focused. And I've got some specific questions for the committee. We previously discussed exception to height limits on November 25th. And we introduced it to address parity between the collective effort needed to accomplish a sustainable development and an affordable housing development, and between the minimum requirements of sustainable component and the current expectations of them. As a little bit of a review, which may or may not have been missing from the original discussion or the opening discussion. This is a form of a premium, this exception to height limits, and we have been offering premiums for a long, long time, since 1966. And they have evolved, so on and so forth over the years. While we were still offering premiums with a capital P, we did offer them for green buildings, for affordable housing units, and the last version of premiums, one specific, when you were doing the affordable housing option, it included a height bonus because you were getting so much additional floor area, you needed a height bonus to fit all of the floor area that you possibly earned. But in 2022, we evaluated the premium options, and fast forward, we eliminated the program, but we did also eliminate the floor area ratios in the D1 and D2 district. And instead, we rely on the almost a true form-based zoning. We rely on the setbacks and the height for how much building you can build in the D1 and D2 district. But with that work and relying on the form, we did want to keep what we felt were two of the most important premiums, and this would be with a lowercase p. That would be green buildings and affordable housing. So we introduced exception to height limits. And our current discussion is basically now an evaluation of how are our exceptions to height limits working. It's been a few years. We've had 6 developments with a sustainability component earn additional height. They each provided solar panels covering 60% of the building roof's surface area. And they actually powered the building systems by electricity, but they do all have gas-fueled generators, I should say natural gas fuel generators for emergency backup power. This does, by the definition, exceed the sustainability component's requirement to simply have the capacity to power the building solely by electricity. And one development used the affordability component, and it happened to provide 100% of its units as affordable housing units, which also exceeds the strict requirement for 15%. But now that we've had these 7 total projects under our belts, there is the concern that the 2, sustainability and affordability, don't require comparable efforts to achieve. Although they both earn the same 30% height exception, it seems that providing the solar panels on the roof and the capacity to be an all-electric building just seems far easier and less expensive to accomplish than delivering 15% of the units as affordable housing. It's also, it doesn't meet our current goals for sustainability. We don't want, and technology has also improved, and being capable is no longer our baseline. It does happen that all of the projects were all electric for the most part, but our code doesn't actually require that. So we had proposed 3 conceptual amendments to address these concerns, and we lumped in together one of City Council's directives to rescind the height exceptions in single-family districts. And that's what we introduced the last time. There is a table in the memo that compares the current standard to our proposed standards back from November, and it has some notes, the good and the bad. We talked about changing that height limits in every zoning district, maybe increased by up to 30%. Talked about changing that to just the mixed use districts. That does satisfy the council's directive. And it even without this, it means that the height exception specifically for the actual solar panels does remain in all districts, including the residential ones. We had floated the idea then of changing sustainability component to an all-electric development, using electricity as the permanent and primary source of energy. This does maintain alignment with A20 Strategy 2, We're able to determine compliance at construction's completion. It does not address energy efficiency. It didn't mention then the any solar panels being required, which was supported by my colleagues in OSI. It is a higher standard than is currently required, which at that meeting was noted to be good and bad. It achieves parity with the other exception component, but it makes development more challenging. And at the time, we also floated the idea of changing the affordability component from 15% to 100%. It was supported by staff as the most realistic way to achieve the actual occupied affordable housing units. But again, it's a higher standard, which could be interpreted as both good or bad. Tonight, we are coming at you with a sort of a menu of options. Planning staff continues to recommend changing the definition of sustainability component to an all-electric building, as that's the minimum necessary amendment to achieve parity between the two components. And that would be without changing the affordable housing component. Being an all-electric development and 15% affordable. That's what we're saying. We are encouraging as the minimum necessary. OSI staff recommend further amendments beyond that. They recommend that for more complete achievement of city goals, include to maintain the solar panel requirement, 60% of the building footprint area, require air source and ground source heat pumps for heating and cooling, and an all-electric building, and compliance with Appendix CC. So a little bit more in detail about those exact requirements. We've done some research, talked to some folks in the know, and first off, you should know, and you do know, that the primary enforcement mechanism for the UDC development standards is approval of plans and permits that are in compliance with the standards. And therefore, the thing that allows a building to exceed the height limit, which in our case, for what we're talking about here, directly translates to more floor area, you need to be able, that thing needs to be a part of the plans, not a future activity, not a promise. It needs to be more tangible. That can be verified right along with the completion of the building itself. Also, prohibiting non-electric emergency power generators is not supported by the building official. High-rise buildings do require backup powers for critical life safety systems. And the building code default is that the backup power source is diesel, because that does not rely, once it's on site, it's there and available for immediate use. The code has an exception where if you have a reliable natural gas infrastructure, which Ann Arbor does, you can use that instead. But this is not, the building official was fairly adamant that we cannot prohibit backup, fossil fuel powered backup generators. And if we prohibit, he felt if we prohibit natural gas powered, we're going to get diesel powered. Also know that the 2021 Michigan Commercial Energy Code includes an Appendix CC called Zero Energy Commercial Building Provisions. And it became effective in just in April of last year, almost 1 year ago. They are permissive guidelines that provide a model for applying new renewable energy generation when new buildings add electric load to the grid. This renewable energy will avoid the additional emissions that would otherwise occur from conventional power generation. And that's directly from the code. They require, at the core, Appendix CC requires either installation of on-site renewable energy systems or procurement of off-site renewable energy systems to offset the calculated building energy. It is part of the state energy code. And so with voluntary submission, the city building official can review construction plans and issue or deny permits complying with Appendix CC. Both options, the on-site renewable or procurement of off-site, can be verified as part of the review because construction drawings will include what system they're using and the documentation of a legally binding contract to procure the offsite energy will be provided as required by that appendix. So it was super important to the planning manager that whatever measure we use can be verifiable at the time of issuance of permits and upon building completion. We can handle that if Appendix CC is voluntarily adopted. So wrapping it up and getting to my point, I am seeking I'm happy to answer any questions. I would probably promote my colleague, Steve Christensen from the Office of OSI. Happy to engage in this discussion, but I am actively seeking some feedback on your preference for the minimum recommended change, the sort of ideal recommended change supported by OSI, or maybe something in between. How would you like ordinance amendment to move forward for public hearing to the Planning Commission?
Great, thanks, Planner DeLeo. Mr. Christensen, did you want to add anything before we go to commissioner questions and comments?
No, I think, I appreciate Alexis. She did a great job talking about, our conversations that we've had. So I have nothing to add.
Great, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Adams, was your hand raised?
Yeah, it was. So can everyone hear me okay? I'm on a new machine.
Yep.
So I had some strong feelings about this in November. I still do. I don't think this should proceed at all. And I just want to be really direct about that because I don't think a lot of my feedback is contemplated or mentioned in the memo. The memo leads off by saying that there's sort of general conceptual support for this. I'm dead set opposed to doing this right now. And I think that if there's a staff desire to proceed anyway, I think it needs to be brought in to the full commission at a meeting so we can vote on whether this is the right use of resources at this time. So my main objection back in November is the same as it is now, which is that this is exactly the wrong time to be talking about messing with the bonuses. So we should be saving our calories for the work that I think may be kicked off as soon as the council signs off on the plan. And that work will include a hard look at downtown, hub transition height limits and where to set them. And wherever they're set, there's going to be a conversation around, okay, is that the outer limit of what the public will accept or what we will accept? And if it isn't, under what circumstances are we willing to let people go above and beyond that? What would be the package of things that we would have to be offered to want or to allow somebody on an ad hoc basis to exceed that line? Or is there even a set of benefits that would be valuable enough to the community to go over that line? It may be that there's not, but that's a conversation that feels to me the soonest it's going to happen is like 4 months from now. That's the soonest it's going to happen. But it does feel like something that in the next 4 to 12 months we might be talking about, in which case this is like premature. And that's the best way I can say it. It might also anchor that subsequent conversation in a way that I don't want. So that's the other aspect of the time piece that I think is critical. We've held off on almost all zoning reform for the last 3 years. And I would include this in that. And groups like Neighbors for More Neighbors have been going to council members for the last 3 years and saying, why aren't we seeing action on zoning reform? And they've been told, wait, you need to wait. You need to wait. So if we have capacity to work on this now, then there's other stuff that I think we should be prioritizing over this. And it also doesn't seem from an equity standpoint fair, right? And I'm like the fact that so many people have been waiting for us to make moves on the zoning front to chase down this issue because OSI wants to ratchet up the benefits that we're getting, that just doesn't feel right to me. It feels out of step and it feels like we're jumping the line a little bit. I also think just again, in the interest of being direct, because I felt like I thought the message got home in November, but I was surprised to see this on the agenda. I just don't think the policy judgments in the memo, the recommendations, even as revised, are right. What I mean by that is the current height bonuses are being actively used. That is not a bad thing. That's not evidence of them being broken. That's actually evidence to me that the change we made from the premiums that were not being used was the right one. We want people, when we don't have enough housing being built, if we're getting taller structures that have more sustainability features baked in than we could otherwise ask for, that feels like a win-win outcome from a policy perspective. If I crank down on the bonuses and make them harder to get, I certainly probably get less housing. I may get fewer projects completely if things can't pencil. And along the way, because of that, I get less sustainability. I get fewer structures that have those amenities because fewer of them may be built. That feels like lose, lose, lose. I don't want that outcome. I don't want to make it harder because we tried that. When we made the premiums hard to get, they were so hard to get the market couldn't avail themselves of them. And then people were building right up to the line. That doesn't feel like the right outcome for the city. I think I would feel differently about it if it were 10, 20 years ago. And we looked at additional height like a bad thing that we don't want. Especially downtown, increasingly we're looking at that or are being told by the city council that that's a good thing. If it's a good thing, then the way that I think about how we calibrate those bonuses changes. I no longer care about proportionality. I don't care if they're being overused. I want people to build taller structures and give me those things. And right now, if we've got a bunch of people saying like, that's an easy line for me to hit, I'll give you solar panels and I'll give you a taller building, that feels like an unalloyed win for the city. So again, just not to repeat myself, but timing wise, like that feels like the gating issue for me. And if after tonight there's an appetite to still proceed with this, then I do want to get this teed up with the full planning commission and get a vote on it. Because I really want to focus our calories on, if we get approval on the plan, on plan execution.
Thank you. Anybody else? Or I don't know, Alexis, if you want to respond to any of that or let other commissioners pick up those comments.
I don't want to not respond, but I very much respect your position, and I will, and I feel that that is your feedback, and I will take that right back to the planning manager and to my colleagues, and we will take that into consideration. So it's not that I have no response, but it's that I fully understand your position.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Norton.
I haven't been on the planning commission as long as Commissioner Adams, so I don't know that I have quite as strong a feeling, but I understand his perspective that we've been putting everybody else off. This isn't the right time. So I'm okay with tabling this until the timing seems right. I did want to make a couple of statements. I'm not so sure that I'm so troubled about that we should do this because of a lack of parity between the two bonuses. I think the more relevant question to ask is the premium that we're giving the appropriate premium for the bonus in height that the developer gets? And is there some logic that way? I am a little troubled, I guess, maybe that we're giving a really huge bonus for a pretty minor modification in terms of sustainability. And it does kind of change whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on whether or not you think taller buildings is okay. And I'm not sure if we really want more affordable housing, why we would shift from a 15% demand to 100% demand. That doesn't seem to make sense to me if we're trying to encourage more affordable housing. All of which is to say, I think this probably merits more discussion and kind of contemplation and maybe some more analysis. If I don't know, Planner Delio, if what are the cost impacts of requiring more affordable housing in terms of the likelihood of developers being willing to do it? And what are the cost impacts of making a building all electric in terms of what they're likely to be able to provide? I think that's the more relevant analysis to do rather than are they equal, or is affordable housing and electricity equal? So I think if we're really going to do this, it merits more analysis and discussion. And given that we've been putting off doing other things in terms of zoning reform because of the club, I understand Commissioner Adams' desire to set this aside for a little bit and kind of fold it into that process. Thanks.
Commissioner Mills?
So I'm torn on this. I feel like one of the reasons that this was on our agenda and that we need to talk about it is because of the memo from council that says we got to change this in single family residential areas. And so I feel like that is a change that we should be responsive to. And that's one of the proposed changes in this. Another very simple change that I think comes up again and again is associated with a sustainability bonus. And just rather than saying the have the capacity, like that's not how we're interpreting it. That's not what we're asking. But I don't think actually that our code is clear. And so that to me seems like a non-controversial, pretty simple change, even if we change nothing else. Made the change that council asked us to make and make that. I feel like that is not necessarily raising the bar. It is just making it clear to everyone. And so those two things I think that we should act on. What we do about whether we raise the bar, I'm kind of with Commissioner Norton that I don't know that there needs to be parity so much. I mean, but it just feels like if you are getting the same outcome, then maybe there should be some parity in some ways. I think that I lean towards wanting to have something in this about efficiency, which is, it's actually interesting to me that that's not being pushed by anyone, necessarily. I appreciate actually having the zero code so that I could read how to do this offsite renewable energy procurement, because those are things you procure that based on a kilowatt hour that is generated. And so that is generated, or, you're using that electricity for years and years. I appreciate like seeing the calculation that's in here. Just for everyone's benefit, if you didn't read through that part, it's the standard is that you need to show that you're going to have a contract for that renewable energy procurement for 15 years. I don't know how one goes about like easily doing that. That what we are able to procure through our utility is not a long-term contract here. And so like I have real questions about like enforcement of that. And it's clear that the standard is just for 15 years, which seems to like is more than what we obviously have now. Certainly not the life of the building. And 15 years from now, our entire grid actually, yes. Oh my goodness. 15 years from now, our entire grid is supposed to be 100% clean energy. So that is the state's goal, like required of the utilities. Public Service Commission does have the option to extend that deadline, just for what it's worth. But so maybe 15 years is actually what we need right now. But I think that there's more, I have more questions on that. And I also hear what Commissioner Adams said about like how much time we're giving to this versus other things. So my suggestion would be that we fix the two simple things that we know have been broken that actually don't require tons of conversation. And decide on the others, I think it is a policy decision, and I think it is a like good or bad, depending on where you sit in this, about whether we raise the bar for folks to get either the additional bonus from affordability or from sustainability. But for right now, I think we just make it clearer in our code and follow the directive that we were given from council. Is where I kind of land.
Commissioner Mills, do you mind if I ask you a follow-up question? Do you have a thought about the 60%, the solar panel requirement? Does that remain or does that go away when you were thinking about that? Because that would be an additional change to eliminate it, right?
Right. And I would propose that we not. I
So for
propose that
yeah.
is, like the simple thing is like take out the like capable of being all electric loophole. I'm just making that clear. And I would propose keeping in the 60%. Also because it is not required that you do put it on your roof. Like it is that area, but like it can be done in carports. I think that flexibility is helpful. Again, I recognize this doesn't go nearly as far as the zero code. I feel that. The buildings that would be able, the multifamily or multi-use, yes, buildings that would, mixed use buildings size that would be likely to go after this are unlikely to be able to generate all of their power on site. I recognize that. I think that is important. But it is a nod towards the idea that this is important. I really like the idea of additional standards associated with how the buildings are heated, like explicitly about the heating and cooling system. I think that that's helpful, and I think it requires some additional conversation. And so I hear Commissioner Adams, and so that's why I would, yeah. Sorry that you asked me a simple question and I went off, Commissioner
That's
Abrams.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I did read all of the things. There's lots of things to consider, which is always why I would just make it real simple.
Yeah.
Like change.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Hammerschmidt, did you want to offer anything before I
can
also
try. So I missed the November conversation because I was out of town. But so when I was reading through this, I think like the options presented all feel like I would also, if this moves forward, want this to come to the entire commission. Just because this feels like an important thing. And I also kept thinking, like, how is this gonna, like, once the plan passes and we do rezoning, we're all of a sudden gonna have like areas of the city that just have unlimited, I think, like have unlimited height or something. So like I don't know. I'm tending to agree with Commissioner Adams' very eloquent argument that like if everything else is waiting, maybe this should also wait. I did have one question, Alexis, about what you said about like people would have to bring this as part of the plan, because I feel like now with the all electric stuff that we're not requiring them to do, it's just kind of like, well, we'll try, right? I mean, there's no like, they would have to come to us with something like that would be in like their development agreement or something, that they would be all electric instead of just telling us they're going to try really hard and they have asked DTE and like maybe there's enough capacity, but maybe there's not. They don't know. They have to investigate. Is that sort of what you were?
Well, we right now, although the code says you are capable of being all electric, during some planning commission discussions and so forth, these 6 projects have said we will be all electric. And what they mean though is, and I think they've been clear, they mean like, we're not going to have gas stoves or gas hot water heater and so on and so forth. But some of them have said, but my restaurant on the first floor will use gas. And they've said we are going to power a backup generator with natural gas. And so we haven't honestly had to address the situation where they say, oh, we tried, but we failed. So far, all 6 of them have been successful in securing enough electricity and so forth. So great, I haven't had to deal with that. What happens if they said something, they couldn't go back on it? Now, these projects, because what they are saying they're doing is exceeding code, I have included it in their development agreements. And then when their building permits come in, I I put a note in the file, or I ask the building guys, well, like, how is their system designed? Do they have gas? And they say, nope, it's electric. And great, it takes 20 seconds. If this should become the new code, that it's all electric to the extent that it is now, I may or may not, probably if I was already doing a development agreement for it, because it's code, I can enforce right from then and there. That's what I'm trying to say. If they were already doing a development agreement, I probably might use it as a reminder, like, hey, reminder, your plans need to come in and not show the natural or fossil fuel connections. But I wouldn't need it anymore, the development agreement. I wouldn't need, because I have the base code to rely on.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. I think those are my only unhelpful comments right now.
No, that's great. I can chime in a little bit. I mean, I also feel split. I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Adams. I think I have less confidence than you do that 4 to 12 months is the time frame within which action would happen on something like this. And so I think what I'm grappling with is, what if that's 24 to 36 months, and what happens in the interim? And so I decided to open the draft 4 of the plan and look at the implementation matrix. And I think that the goal and action that correspond to something like this, if anyone has it open, would be page 156. It's 11.2.2, and it's the action that says incentivize high performance, zero emission buildings, full electrification, and energy reduction measures. And the time frame on that is 4 to 6 years in the implementation matrix. So, but I also understand, I think, Commissioner Adams, what you're saying is that we are like once the plan is adopted, probably out of the gates, the things that attention will be turned to first are hub and transition, and that this is part of that whole conversation. I guess I'm just a little bit like, I guess I'm wondering, is there a middle road where we minimize the amount of time we spend on it, but we also put something in place that at least satisfies some of the things that we think might be problematic with the existing system in the meantime? Because 6 projects, I think many of them happened within 12 month, 1 calendar year. Like, we might be seeing 4 or 5 projects a year that are doing this. So, and I think it's not about raising the bar. I think maybe, to Commissioner Mills' point, it's actually about making sure that it seems clear that we can actually achieve this standard of building something to be all electric, as opposed to just saying capable, without limiting development. We won't be reducing the number of projects that take advantage of this. However, my other thing, this might just throw everything I said into confusion, is my struggle with all of this is that we are in some ways holding back something that we actually want as a way to incentivize something else that we also want. This is what happened when we had the whole premiums discussion, is we said, actually, we want these buildings to have more housing. We want increased floor area. So why are we making it difficult to achieve? Why aren't we just allowing what we want? So there's something in the system which is saying that additional height is actually something we are only willing to abide if it gets us this other thing, when in fact, I think we all want more housing. Or more height, which would lead to more housing, just to connect that dot. So, so I don't want to make it harder to get, but I also don't feel totally confident that, but I also want to make sure that the sustainability component is significant and the affordable housing component is meaningful. It's a meaningful thing. And I'm a little worried that it might be 3 years or something before change happens. So all of that is inconclusive, but I'll pause for a minute and let Commissioner Norton chime in and maybe come back to something more conclusive.
Well, I think I was going to try and take stock of where we are. It sounds like we have maybe 3 options. One is to not do anything on this now, to basically suggest that we just table it completely. One is to go forward with everything that the staff have pulled together, their most expansive requirements, which would be at odds with what Commissioner Daniels is asking for. It sounds like Daniels, I'm sorry, Commissioner Adams. The third piece is somewhere in the middle, which I'm riffing a little bit on Commissioner Mills and basically fixing two things that one, the city council asked for, and two, a clarification that everybody's following anyways. It's just making clear that you have to build an all-electric building, not that you have the capability. Those seem to me to be two non-policy, they're not major policy making, they're correct, they're not quite Scrivener's errors, but there are two small fixes that there's a compelling reason to do that don't get us into involved policy debates and analysis about what's the right level of premium to offer to get the right outcome that we're looking for. So maybe that's the middle road approach that would deal with some of these near-term issues and then properly set the rest of the big policy discussions aside for now to put them in line with what the plan's calling for and what we're doing. And I guess since Commissioner Adams made such a strong statement about not wanting to do anything, I guess I'm kind of wondering if he's okay with doing that middle ground.
I think it would depend entirely on what Ms. Dillio can say about the staff load of that, because that's again one of my concerns. Like if those are simple, simple drafting jobs that come in, for kind of a quick up and down vote, I don't feel like either one of those. To Commissioner Mills's point, the single family instruction is something we're going to do. We can do it now. We can do it later. My objection to doing it now is just I'd like again all available calories to be focused on, because I want to be cognizant at all times about the fact that planning staff, your hours of every day are limited, and very quickly there's going to be sort of very large competing demands on your time relative to ongoing one-off approvals and reviews and staff reports, and then also zoning reform and all kinds of other things. So, and there's going to be a few of us, and I'm in that group, that once the plan's approved are going to be saying, all right, let's get moving on this. And I know for a fact that the to the extent that there's going to be pushback, it's going to be around, we don't have the resources, time is limited, that type of thing. So what I don't want to do is load staff up with a bunch of stuff that to me will get tackled as we move along and not move with speed on the zoning piece. If these two things are quick, then I'm fine with. I don't have any real objections to. It feels like sleeves off my vest, right? I don't have any objections to that. Anything beyond that feels like a meaty issue that we're going to want analysis on. We're going to want OSI in the room to talk about, and that's going to start dragging on time and resources.
I guess that's to you then, Alexis.
Yeah. I can say that doing what Commissioner Mills had sort of said, more like a line, this would fall in terms of staff capacity. That would fall like what we're doing with the solid waste things and the stormwater things. We kind of already have hashed out the language tonight, and it's sort of amending literally one sentence or one definition, changing the definition where it says capacity to be all electric, just sort of change it to be all electric. That is quick enough that I can advertise for a public hearing. I can put it in the works tomorrow. It would happen before any of big picture UDC work kicks off, out stemming from the comp plan. That is still in its, implementation plans are being developed. Do you issue an RFP or don't, so on and so forth. So this could slide just under the radar. Anymore, because there would be very little analysis of it. It's, writing one memo-ish kind of thing. It's the research and the analysis component. That's the heavy lift. Typing up one sentence, putting it in the template for an ordinance, that's not much. And that much of that work is just simply waiting time while there's public hearings being advertised. And if that's the way the commission wants to go, I get the sense maybe, but I will look for confirmation. That could slide right in just before comp plan work consumes all.
Yeah, Commissioner Mills.
I just wanted to clarify, we're probably talking two sentences, right? One is the cleaning up the all electric, but the other one would be the change that is responsive to our dash 25-287.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one sentence, 5 sentences, it's the research and analysis component.
Right.
Neither one takes much background.
Okay. And I was going to say, and it's half written. I mean, like what's in the, hopefully.
Yes.
If part of the reason that I don't want to totally like shelf this is that like we've gotten here where there's a couple of things that we can quickly check that resolution off our list. And so, if, well, I'm not the, I wonder what Commissioner Adams or Commissioner Abrams has to say about that, but just wanted to be clear that it is also the other part. Super.
I mean, I think what I heard Planner DeLeo saying in response to Commissioner Adams' concerns is that the lion's share of the work to do the things we're talking about for the middle of the road version, the lion's share of the work has already happened, and it would be actually very, very quick. I think just to be very honest, I think the time suck, the risk of time suck is actually at the commission table on a Tuesday evening for the other 4 commissioners for whom this is a brand new idea.
Yeah.
So it will be our job to try to bring them up to speed quickly, as quickly as possible, but also obviously we want to honor and make room for their questions and processing of this thing that we've been chewing on for a little while. So, but I would support the middle of the road option at this point. And Commissioner Adams saying yes, and we don't, I think we just have to give you, Planner DeLeo, a kind of general sense, and then obviously the actual opinions that matter will happen at the table.
Yes, very much so. I guess I would just confirm sort of these minimum recommended changes, just changing capacity to actual and changing the all districts to mixed use districts. And that will move forward to a public hearing at the Planning Commission. I will, and if the powers that be, such as the planning manager, or they can basically, I guess, also present their case in a different staff report. But am I correct that the Ordinance Revisions Committee is saying, actually, just move forward with the smallest change possible to achieve to match our current practices?
To address current practice and to respond to the city council's direction.
Yeah.
2 simple changes, and that all the meaty policy discussions we're setting aside to fold them into the regular CLUP implementation effort.
Yeah.
That's my sense. Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Christensen.
And this middle of the road approach includes keeping the 60%.
Yes.
That wouldn't change. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, wonderful. Like, a great definition of all electric would be a great thing to have.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I don't know what to do with this, but I'll just maybe bookmark again that we have 4 to 6 years in the implementation matrix, which feels like too long for me. I understand. So yeah, just gonna leave that here.
But if it gets folded into if it tags along with other things we are addressing, I don't think we're precluded from addressing them sooner, right?
Right. It just kind of means that in some ways, as opposed to referring to the document, we refer instead to our own meeting notes, our own personal priorities, our own, momentum around some of these issues. I'm sure the public will also keep us aware.
Yeah, this is just the front end of exactly this kind of process we're going to have to go through.
Yeah. All right. Planner DeLeo, do you feel like you have what you need?
I do, actually. Yeah, it is what it is, and I'm very clear, so I have good direction, and I can answer any other zoning questions that you might have, or or we can adjourn.
Great. Well, we have one more public comment
Yes.
period beforehand. Any other final comments before we move on to agenda 4? All
Oh,
right. Oh,
well, let me see what this. So, in the audience is Commissioner White. I will promote him to a panelist because what am I doing? Things are moving around.
raise his hand. He often tunes in just to listen to our conversation.
Yes, but he raised his hand.
He did raise his hand. Okay. Are we starting public comment right now?
Well, I'm going to ask Commissioner White if he would like to join the conversation as a commissioner, or if he would just like to make the public comment.
Okay.
I'll take my privilege as chair and make a comment just to help
Okay.
when this comes back to the table, because I've been listening to the conversation and thank you all for it. One clarifying question is, if you make the change for the height bonus for sustainability to be mixed use, which would currently exclude the exclusionary zones of R, when the comp plan revisions the new residential or low rise residential, whatever we call it, won't those all become mixed use again? And will you have to revise this a second time because the mixed use is not going to be enough of a qualifier? So that was just a thought that I had as I was listening to the conversation. And you've probably thought about it and you probably already have an answer, but I just wanted to put it at this point as opposed to when it comes to the table.
Thank
you, Commissioner
I
White.
can address that. I can address that in broad brush terms because there are so many variables. But I will say that similar to with the timely, very timely, similar to the solid waste terms, when one chapter changed, we can respond. Right now, the residential districts and mixed use districts are sort of defined in the UDC. And when we create new districts, a little bit of it, we'll have to redefine them and resort and reorder. I can't say how it will be done yet because there's so many choices. Will we be creating brand new districts and retiring and eliminate the old ones? Will we be simply adding to? This will all be part of this is part of the work to overhaul Chapter 55, and it is in forefront of our minds. There are kind of two parts to that work coming up. One is create the new code, and then there is integrate it, and to what extent needs to be integrated with the existing structure.
Commissioner Norton.
I'm not the city's legal counsel, but just conventionally, I think maybe Commissioner Mills can tell me if she has this understanding too, but mixed use envisions mixing fundamentally different uses like residential and commercial or things like that. I've never heard of multiple kinds of residential being considered mixed use. And
well, but I think what
maybe,
Commissioner White is saying is that in the new district, the residential district, because it allows neighborhood commercial, that potentially there might be no districts that are only residential. They will all be mixed use, potentially. So that's why. So if I understand what you're saying, Planner DeLeo, is you're saying inevitably we will have to change things. There's no way to predict the size of that task. So it's still in our interest to change things now, and we'll be changing lots of things.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Weiss, does that satisfy your comment and response to your comment?
Yeah, I mean, I assumed that I would get an answer that I did, and I'm just previewing to ORC what I'm going to say when this comes to the table, which is we're setting up multi stage changes in a way that I I didn't hear all of Commissioner Adams' argument. I just heard the tail end of it when I joined the call. But this one still also feels like it should sit when we land as opposed to changing it immediately, because it's going to get changed again. So we're duplicating work is all I'm arguing for here. I think I agree with Commissioner Mills's comment around the sustainability for height, capable versus expected. That feels very straightforward. That's a line item change. I don't anticipate the table having much objection to that. But I think there may be, and maybe this is what we want and what ORC wants to have, I think there will be debate and conversation around whether or not we take this up now, and take it up a second time after assuming the comp plan is approved by council and we start the implementation of that, because I don't think residential changes are the things that are coming to the forefront. Plus, there are exclusionary zones right now. There's not a lot of new land that I think is being zoned into this category. So it feels like it's a change that isn't necessarily going to solve an immediate problem. But I could be wrong, because Planner DeLeo sees more proposals coming to the table and may have a sense that, oh no, there's 100 new single family homes that are coming in and 50% of them are going sustainable and would want this height bonus. And so we should address it immediately.
No,
I mean,
this section is solely in response to council.
What that comment makes me realize is that the council direction is to remove the exception from the residential category. It's not really about use, which is to say, like, even if the residential category allows neighborhood commercial, there won't be a height exception there. I don't know if there's like a language. There's a game we can play with the language that would allow us to be actually more precise with what the intention is, as opposed to, does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, right now we're saying we'll limit it to mixed use. I think Commissioner Weiss is saying, well, that's not really accurate because technically we potentially have residential category that is also mixed use. So is there another way to write the language that limits it to transition and hub or some, which with those don't exist yet. So I know that we can't say those yet, but I think you understand my intention, like, or not. I don't know, maybe there's no way to do it, but.
Yeah, so I think you're getting into the trickiness of it, because in one sense, it is an attempt to restrict heights that exceed what the policy directive from council envisioned in exclusionary residential zones. But exclusionary residential zones are going away if council approves the comp plan. So is this an opportunity to say, we understand that you asked for this, but the comp plan that we've delivered to you is actually going to change the entire residential sort of category, even in the low res area, and make it mixed use? And does this requirement that you've asked for still make sense in light of that? So, like, this is part of what I'm previewing for you, what I will do at the table if this comes the way that you decided before you permitted me to speak. So if you don't want to have this conversation or you want to go in a different direction, I'm like, that's why I just wanted to share it, just to say, like, here's how I'm thinking about it.
Well, Commissioner White, I do very much hear you, but my understanding of this council directive is they've sort of gone on record and saying the residential districts will have a 30-foot height limit. So planning commission and your workers, whatever you do, that district or districts need to have a 30-foot height limit, and I interpret that to be a hard stop. Now, We don't have those districts created yet. There is so much work to be duplicative and to make the connections. Every single section of the UDC needs to be updated into what applies to what and what triggers what, and everything from procedures to the kinds of permits to enforcement to nonconformities. So this one element, this is nothing. This is peanuts. But what we're saying now with this ordinance revisions committee work today, tonight's work, is we're saying, council, we hear you, and we're going to do you one better. When we create those districts, it's going to have a 30-foot height limit, and there's going to be no exceptions to it. But we'll even match that today. So no matter if the low-rise residential district, no matter if it takes 6 months or 6 years, you can rely upon the height limit listed in chapter 55, whatever it says. And I'm squirreling in my mind, I'm getting off track, but I just wanted to point out, like, there is so much involved in rewriting code. And when you are introducing new districts and removing old ones and recategorizing them, that not doing any work just because it's going to be duplicative, well, then you won't even start the work in the first place. So this is part of the process, and it's just an embedded part of large scale changes in a code. I guess what I'm saying is we very much know that there's going to be so much duplicative work. If the reason for not endorsing something tonight is because there'd be a little element of repetition, that's not enough for not doing it. If you just don't agree with and you would like to remain, the height exception should remain in the current R districts, R1, R2, R3, R4. That's something else.
Commissioner Mills.
Given that I asked about this to make sure that was what Ms. DeLeo was drafting, like the idea that we're changing also the districts. I feel silly saying this, but actually this conversation has made it clear that people aren't necessarily arguing that currently this is inappropriate given the height limits in our existing R districts. It's what was proposed for future predominantly residential areas, is where this change was anticipated. I do think it's going to take us a while to get to the rezoning of that, because I don't think that's where our priorities are. In the interim, I think that this is not a bad policy. Like, if we're going to see additional development up to the height in currently residential districts, like, I would like to say, go even higher if you give us a more sustainable building or give us a more affordable building. So I think actually where this conversation has me coming out is that I do think that we should make it clearer what we mean by all electric. That all electric means all electric. And maybe that is the only, I feel like maybe that is the only sentence that we change in this. And honestly, that thing about all electric has been on our list to change for a while. So, like, it is still checking something off. It might not be checking the resolution off, but I appreciate Commissioner Weich reminding us that resolution is not actually about our existing thing. It's actually about the thing that is to come. And so it feels uncomfortable to me that we have a thing that's going to be sitting on our list for a very long time that we won't be able to check it off. But we already know that this is, like, it's written into our plan as we are going to implement the rezoning of those areas that we have a height limit that shall not be exceeded. So I think I would almost go back, and maybe other people are thinking that this is terrible, and just have the very simple, change to the electric definition, and that is it. One sentence.
Commissioner Weich. Commissioner White, is your hand up?
I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm on my phone and things are clicked off the screens. So Thank you, Commissioner Mills. I think you've described us as being yin and yang sometime. And so I'm impressed with your movement there, though that was not my intent. So I appreciate it. Ms. DeLeo, I am never going to say publicly that you do not know the UDC. You said a 30-foot height limit. I thought residential already was up to 35 in most of the districts. And I thought in the comprehensive land use, we said 3 stories and we did not adopt a you shall not go above this foot limit. I don't know if you were just talking in general or if you were being specific from your intimate knowledge of the UDC. And in the time that Commissioner Mills was talking, I was trying to pull up the tables so that I could look at it and I could quote it correctly. But could you just apprise me to make sure that I have the correct understanding of our current, like, let's just take R1, for example. I thought we had a 35 foot limit today. And then this would give us a 30% bonus, which would get us around 9 additional feet at the midpoint of the parapet or whatever the measurement is. So we're not actually talking about super significant things. And given all of our nonconformity across the city, it's highly likely that this isn't actually going to look different in exclusionary zones like my own neighborhood of R1C.
The R1 districts, the terms residential and mixed use and special purpose come from the use table. And, there's sort of black lines to help guide the eye. And the residential start with R. There's the mixed use ones. They're not consistent with what letter they start with, but it includes O, C for commercial, D for downtown, and T for TC1. So they're not, we group them together for discussion purposes because it just takes too much time to list out all of your districts that you're talking about. The R1 districts have a 30-foot height limit. They do, as well as the R2, R2A and R2B. But the R3 districts have the R3 districts, some of the R4 districts have a 35-foot height limit. And then some already give a bonus to 45 feet when you provide parking underneath the building. One of the R districts, R4D, has a 120-foot height limit. And the R4E district has no height limit. There's not, and there, I don't believe, and I am nowhere near an expert on the contents of the comp plan, but I can address the UDC. The UDC says that anything that starts with an R is a residential district, and their height limits are not uniform. They are either 30, 35, 45, or 120, or unlimited. The comp plan, I think, sort of splits the R districts, actually, and I think it kind of does, someone correct me, I think it kind of lumps the R1s and R2s and maybe R3 and maybe R4C specifically amongst the residential, but I think a lot of the higher Rs are among the transition districts. So there is not perfect alignment between the current districts that we offer and the desired districts of the comp plan. And that's what the work of the next few years will be, is to either merge our existing districts or create new ones and eliminate the existing ones, or some combination of that.
Before Commissioner Norton, real quick, I just wanted to say thank you, Planner DeLeo. And as I noted at the beginning, I will never go into a rap battle with you on the UDC. I will always lose that because that thing back and forth. So thank you for clarifying. I think Commissioner Mills made my point. And so I appreciate you all hearing me out at this point of the conversation. I'm happy to see both things come to the table, but you have a preview of the conversation that I would initiate on the second item. I think the first item is completely acceptable. We would pass that after you notice it and have a public hearing. But I think we would actually need to have a robust conversation about the second one to address that, would be my feedback. And given the previous comments of giving your time to helping implement the plan should the plan pass, I would just echo, this feels like something we can put in when we redefine. And now we have guidance from council. So when we go to redefine it, we use that guidance so that what we redefine fits what council expects.
Thanks. Commissioner Norton.
I was just going to observe that this discussion and all the complexities we're getting into is exactly the kind of yikes. There's a whole lot of different dimensions and layers to this that really need to be thought through carefully. So I was kind of picking up on Commissioner Mills' insight that this was a request by the City Planning Commission or the City Council and that we were trying to respond to it. But I guess I'm going to now slide back with her and say, you know what? This is much more complex than we should deal with at this point. And I understand Planner DeLeo's comment that if we're doing this because we're trying to avoid duplication, that's not a good reason to stop. But we're actually talking about pretty substantial, substantive policy choices and things that need to be thought through. And that's the kind of thing that Commissioner Adams was pointing out we shouldn't be doing at this point. We should fold that into the regular plan update process. So I'm gonna come back down, I think, with Commissioner Mills and say, maybe we should just put forward the change on making all buildings electric and not pick up the mixed use or residential or all of that, that's much more of a substantive policy thing that we should fold into the regular deliberations. So I guess that's where I'm landing now, given this ongoing dialogue.
Thank you, Commissioner Norton. I'm going to assume Commissioner Adams agrees because he would have said don't do any of it. So Commissioner Hammerschmidt, do you have an opinion? And the reason that you can also say you don't want to, you're on the fence at this moment, but I think I'm asking because if 6 of the 9 commissioners are here now, we kind of know which way the wind's blowing on this. But if we're split, then I would say in some ways we take it to the body.
I agree with that approach that Commissioner Norton just outlined.
Okay.
And I won't bore you with the why.
I think then there's consensus here, Planner DeLeo. So I would say we're back to just clarifying language around all electric, keeping the 60% solar, and tabling the rest until we move into implementation of the new comp plan.
Very much fair enough.
Well, we are very appreciative of all the hard work. Took a lot to get here. Which I think, to Commissioner Norton's point, is just evidence of the complexity of a lot of these things that seem simple at first.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments here before we move to public comment? All right. This is a second opportunity for individuals to speak for up to 3 minutes. You can press *9 if you're on the phone or use the raise hand feature in Zoom. For phone access, you can call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. Planner DeLeo will identify callers by the last 3 digits of their phone number or their name in Zoom. You'll hear an announcement that it's your turn to speak. Ensure you're in a quiet area and mute background noise. And for all participants, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments.
Caller ending 134, which, if memory serves, is Mr. Ken Garber. You are allowed to speak. The time is 8. Let's say it's 8:30. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Planner DeLeo. Yes, thank you for everyone for the discussion. In clarifying the definition of all electric, I didn't hear the committee take up OSI's suggestion that be restricted to heat pumps, either air or ground source. The rationale behind that is that there are many forms of all electric heat that are extremely inefficient. Resistance heating, D-tax, boiler-based. We want heat pumps because of their extreme efficiency. And so I'm hoping if Mr. Christensen is still on the call, he can chime in on that. But I'm hoping to see that as part of the definition that comes before Planning Commission. And finally, just an observation. As I pointed out in my earlier comment, the city's climate action plan specified that starting in 2022, not just that extra tall buildings incorporate Appendix CC and our net zero energy, but all new construction starting that year would be there, would meet that standard. So it just underlines to me just how far we've retreated from our climate goals as we established in 2020 in the 820 plan, which is, I guess, still city policy on some level. And maybe there are good reasons for that. I mean, maybe there are coherent arguments that around affordability, or the fact that state regulation hasn't come around as quickly as we hoped. But in this case, the height exception, this is completely voluntary. A developer doesn't have to go for it. And in fact, the state has explicitly approved Appendix CC for local units of government to apply in cases like this. And we're still not doing it. So climate has really receded as a consideration across the board, and certainly for new construction. And there hasn't been a discussion about this. Maybe obviously that's what the consensus seems to be at this point. But it's a major change from what was envisioned and is still on the books in the 820 plan. So all this to say that I'm observing this with a lot of regret and sadness, and hope that we retain some of the spirit of the plan in going forward. And I'll obviously be pushing for that personally.
Thank you, Mr. Garber. Commissioner Abrams, there are no others with their hands raised.
Great, thank you. I realized I was muted. I was also thanking you, Mr. Garber. Okay, then we'll move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is communication. Just noting we don't have any new communication which was received or attached to the agenda for this meeting. And with that, item 6, adjournment. So we are now adjourned. Have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.